Hello everyone, we're going to talk about my Servant of Arakaali Poison SRS build and how to avoid some bad and bait versions of this type of build. And we are going to use one example that some people might recognize or have seen before. So this is a content creator's version, which he called "This is the best Poison SRS Servant of Arakaali version that he's going to put out, or it's going to be one of the best that's gonna be put out, and this is pretty much garbage. But some might point out, look, the damage is 30 million, I only have 19 million, or block chance is capped, mine's not. But this PoB uses glancing blow, so this is shit. And the full DPS is massively overinflated with a bunch of different things. Like I can show you, if we take my version with the same overinflations, I get 31 million and still keep everything besides some mass fizz lost. And the overinflations are basically using Alchemist Creation, Spectre, which for SRS is a pretty shit Spectre, but it massively overinflates the damage. And it's like 6 million. But you never get this amount of damage from the Spectre. PoB adds it, like it casts a buff, and PoB adds it at 100% of uptime. And the buff is 100 increased damage and 30% attack and cast speed for the SRS. But it's a buff with a 15-second cooldown and about 8-second duration. So you only get about 50% uptime. And on top of that, SRS has pretty bad synergy with this buff. And of the main total, you'd maybe get about 20-25% of the actual buff, which is basically this increase if you add it to config, which is like 1.5 million instead of 6 million. And the reason why the synergy for SRS with Alchemist Creation is bad is because when you, like, the SRS has an 8-second duration, and by the time you have summoned 20, you'll probably spend 4 seconds doing that. So the ones you started summoning will get the buff and only get 4-second duration, and if they should die, you never get the full damage. Or if you cast new SRS, you despawn the newest ones, and then the new ones don't have a buff, because the only SRS that were spawned in the beginning, when the buff is cast, gets the buff. It's not Lana Aura, which stays up. So that's one of the massive overinflations in this PoB. Another one is Fall Haste is enabled. Like, you should never have Fall Haste enabled. You're never gonna have this 100% uptime on this unless you play one of the new Ascendancies, which was Fall skill focused. But like, it's pretty shameless to enable something like this. And then the third inflation is to add like 10 to 15 divines, Ghastly Eye Ewels. And I think this PoB had like 6 Ghastly Eye Ewels that cost anything between 10 to 20 divine. So it's pretty overinflated. So if you remove all those from this PoB, it drops down to like 19 million or even less. And then you can compare the max hits, 7k max fizz. Like, really? In my proper setup PoB, I have 20k, 50 max fire, 65 max cold, 50 max lightning, 26 max chaos. And you compare it to like 21k max elemental. So it's pretty garbage defenses. Life regen, it's a better comparison here, but mine's still higher. And what else? Yeah, the Minion survivability in this build is shit as well. So don't play this build, and the build is bottom edges. But with that said, his Holy Relic version is actually a good build to play, even though he did copy it from someone else. Anyway, let's talk about something else, and that is guard skills. There are quite a lot of people that enable guard skills in their POBs to massively overinflate their max hits. I have a guard skill, but I keep mine disabled. The only reason I would see someone to enable it is if their uptime for a guard skill is like at least 75% or above. Otherwise you should never enable it. And then there are some people that use fall Arctic armor and then they enable it to make their max hits look like this, which is basically something that will never happen, and only shameless people do this. I mean, if it's fine if you have full Arctic armor and just enable Arctic armor, but don't click this to make your baby look better. It's fucking stupid. And something that is important with poison SRS builds is to have some kind of avoidance, either by having block, preferably not glassing blue block, because that's shit most of the time. Another option is to have a lot of evasion and then a lot of spell suppression. So make sure to look at that if you're looking at SRS POBs, or any POB for that matter. Sustain is going to be very important now, since you no longer have bone barrier for leech with minion builds now, or if you play generally Arakaali or any minion version. So you want a lot of life regen or some kind of recovery when you block, for example Aegis to get ES or the surrender. And you can actually play this build of mine with surrender if you prefer that over Aegis. You just need to do some changes in the tree, and that's dropping Mom the ES mastery that gives you regen, and you drop melding and the 3 before that, and then you grab quick recovery and you blood siphon to get more life and just life regen, and then you have the massive life on block from the tower shield, the surrender. So that's an option you have instead of playing Aegis. But I played my Necro version, has Aegis, and it works fine. I've killed all Ubers with it in a similar setup to this. So it will probably work now, otherwise surrender is maybe the option to go. And as you can see here, I'm using a trigger wand with hybrid, 2 low rolled hybrid mods, or somewhat low rolled or mid rolled, with increased damage and attack speed, but no extra skills. The extra skills is usually what makes this wand quite expensive, but now we don't use that. We just use the increased damage, and this adds more damage than United and Dream. So that's why you should probably use a trigger wand. To be fair, I would need to swap my poison jewels to pure damage, and I would probably gain like 2 million, but it would still be less than just using a trigger wand instead. And trigger wand is much better quality of life compared to casting Arcanist Brand all the time. Fuck that. And then let's see, I don't have melee splash in this early Covenant version, and the reason for that is my AG has Asenath and I am not using meat shield, so my AG is going to be more aggressive and not stick to me all the time, so he will apply Asenath's curse a lot more consistently, which will cause explosions, which is just better. You just want to kill enemies fast. He applies the debuff of something and they just explode. Later on you use Hungry Loop to give him melee splash, and this will improve clear speed a lot more. because he splashes the curse with a single hit on every target. So the application of the curse and the explosions will be a lot better. And now minion survivability is going to be very important if you're gonna run AG and spectres. And since we're not necro, we're losing 40% maximum life as extra ES, and you're losing a bunch of more maximum life and increased maximum life from the necro tree. So you need to make sure to compensate that by grabbing minion life nodes and make sure to get blessed rebirth, because without this your SRS are gonna die to most AoEs, so this will make them immortal for at least the first 4 seconds. This is actually a big damage increase, even if you don't actually see it on the numbers. And if you see a SRS build uses AG and Spectre, and without this node, minions recover 5% life from minion death, or at least if they don't have the notable life from death. Like if they have or if they have AG inspectors and they don't have this, their build's gonna be shit. Their AG inspectors always gonna die. So always avoid those types of builds that don't try to make sure AG inspectors stay alive. There are some decent or good builds that are pivoting or playing SRS, and they're going more into the right side of this tree. And for those builds, I'll say watch out for anyone that actually has AG or Spectre in those builds, because you have like no minion survivability here. And so most of those builds that I've looked at that went down here, their AG has like half the life of my AG, half the max hits, and their AG is basically gonna die to most content. So avoid those builds. Like if you want to play SRS and you want to go on this side, you should skip AG and Spectre basically completely. You should probably use the Broodguard node to get spiders and just use SRS to compensate for whatever AG and Spectres give you. But like having minion survivability while you go on this side of the tree is basically going to be non-existent. So try to avoid any build you see that does that. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I doubt it. And one thing as well is I am using Phantasm instead of Meat Shield, because if you're running Forest Warrior for Onslaught and Call, AG to apply explosions with Asenath, you don't want them defensive. If they're defensive, they will rarely apply Call or explosions or the curse, because you're probably too far away. Without it, they will consistently apply it instead. And Summon Phantasm is actually a defensive in this setup. Like the damage is whatever, but these like Spectres and AG will summon a bunch of Phantasm, and then they will also trigger this. Minions recover 5% life from minion death, so you will recover even more than just having SRS. So Phantasms will help keep all your Spectres and AG alive. One thing with my build is that my plan is to go first as a witch to get free, and then to get SRS, raise zombie, holy flame totem, and then that's at like level 3 to 4. You finish the breaking some eggs quest in the mudflats, and then you re-roll as a shadow, and then you go Cobra Lash, chance to poison, and then at level 4 you switch to SRS, holy flame totem, flame wall, and zombies, and you level with this. You don't have to do this. You could go Cobra Lash basically up to you get Peaconk, and then you go Peaconk until you finish the first lab, and then you switch to SRS. The one issue I see with that is that you will have a level 1 SRS gem when you buy it from Siosa. So maybe they will die, and their accuracy will be pretty shit, at least for the first levels after you buy it. But both options will probably work. It's whatever. I'll personally go and with the mule leveling plan. How is Necro versus Servant of Arakaali? If you compare it with my Necro version, I don't have it open, but you get higher max elemental hits, but you have lower max fizz, since you don't have Bone Barrier, and you don't have Leech to help with sustain. You have lower minion survivability because you don't get a bunch of defensive minion nodes from the Necro Ascendancy. The damage is basically the same early on. When you go to the mid setup, this has about 6 million more than my poison version or Necro version. Late version is closer or basically the same. And to close off, I plan to make a poison ranged animate weapon build for the Servant of Arakaali as well. And I have my Chaos Minion army, Zoomancer. I don't think I'm gonna convert, or I have converted it, looked at it, and it looks a lot worse compared to the Necro version. Poison range animate weapon and SRS just look a lot better. So I'll probably not post a build about that. If you enjoyed watching the video, please like and subscribe. It helps a lot. Thanks.